Okay, welcome to the chapter on the pelvis. So this is going to be chapter 6 in your textbook. And we're really starting on page 278. I have my skeleton in the background. You can see the pelvis. The pelvis is this whole area here, okay? We're going to be talking about the pelvic girdle, kind of like we talked about the shoulder girdle. It goes all the way around. And we're going to talk about the articulation point between the pelvis and the femur. So this is actually the hip joint here. So we're going to go right into the screen share. Takes a second. All right, so here we are. This is page 279 in your book. And we're going to just start by getting our landmarks, getting our bearings, if you will. So as I mentioned, this is the whole pelvic girdle here. And what we have on this side and on this side are coxal bones. One of these is a coxal bone, right? See, this is the disarticulated version, of course. The two coxal bones articulate with this right here, which is the sacrum, and they make the sacroiliac joint right here, or SI joint. We'll go into more detail about that later. And then they also meet in the front at something called the pubic symphysis. So you see it makes a whole circle, bowl, all the way around. So that's the whole pelvic girdle here. All right, so this is a posterior view. You can see the sacrum a little bit better from the posterior side. You also have the coccyx attached to the sacrum. The coccyx is your tailbone. It's 3 or 4 fused vertebrae. And it doesn't really do anything for you other than serve as an attachment site for some ligaments. So again, here's a coxal bone. And here's a coxal bone. And you can see they articulate with the sacrum back here in the posterior side. You can also see the femur. So this is the femur, here's the femur, and they articulate with each coxal bone to form the hip joint right here. Now you will notice these empty spaces here and here. These are holes. Yeah, they are called obturator foramen, the holes, obturator foramen. See? And again, we'll go into more detail when we do the specific landmarks. This video is really just about what's there. Okay, so this is an interesting view. This is actually like an inferior view, kind of looking up at the pelvis. And this gives you a good view of the pubic symphysis. So remember, the pubic symphysis is where it comes, where the coxal bones meet in the front of the body. The pubic symphysis is actually a piece of cartilage. It's a really thick, dense piece of cartilage that holds everything together right there. And this actually softens and separates a bit when a pregnant woman is delivering a baby, in case you were wondering. All right, so again, here are your coxal bones. This is a very nice view of the hip joint. Okay, so here's the head of the femur, and it sits very nicely in this lovely socket right here. It's a ball and socket joint, of course. Okay, this is much, much larger, right, than the glenoid fossa on the scapula. See how big and deep that is? So the hip it does not dislocate as easily as the shoulder because there's a lot more holding the head of the femur there. And here's a really nice lateral view. Plus, this view is actually in a body, so you can see where these landmarks really are. So this would be this area right here. Of course, this is still the coxal bone. Oh, let me scroll down a little. But this top part here is the iliac crest. And this is actually where your natural waist is going to be. We will feel all of these landmarks in the next video. Okay. But if you put your fingers where your natural waist is, you might feel the top of a bone here. That's the iliac crest. Then if we kind of move our hands down a little closer to our pubic area, that is the greater trochanter of the femur. That's another big bony landmark that we'll be able to pick out on our clients and on ourselves. And then back here is the ischial tuberosity. This is not easy to pick out right now, but we will be able to palpate it once we know where it is. And then you have your sacrum and your coccyx right here, or tailbone again, okay? Again, just to give you an idea of what's there and how it's all situated. And this is what we're going to be going into. So we're going to learn all of these bony landmarks. There are quite a few. The coxal bone is an irregular bone. See, it doesn't have any kind of regular shape to it. It doesn't look like any other bones in the body. It is an irregular bone. We have landmarks on the posterior. We have landmarks on the anterior. We have these lovely bridge pieces right here, parts in the front, parts in the back. So we have quite a few landmarks to learn here. Now I'm going to go back to page 278 really quickly. And this again is just general orientation. This is what I kind of started with. Now I did not tell you the 3 parts of the coxal bone, because I wanted to do that separately. So each coxal bone is actually made up of 3 fused parts. And these fuse together while you are still in the womb. You have the ilium, which is this top part here. It kind of looks like the elephant ear, the ilium. You have the ischium, which is the posterior part. Okay, it's got a big lump on the back. And then the anterior part is the pubis. And the pubis is going to articulate with the pubic symphysis right there. Okay, so this part in the front here is the pubis. So those 3 particular bones make up the coxal bone, and they all actually come together in the socket here. If we were going to draw lines, that's where we would put the dividing lines there, okay? Now, in textbooks and even on the skeleton back here, all of the pelvises that you see are male pelvises. There are quite a few differences between a male pelvis and a female pelvis. Now, they are structured the same. In other words, they have a sacrum, 2 coxal bones, pubic symphysis, you know, all of that, but their shape is different. So let's take a look at that for a second. So on the left side of the screen, I guess, well, however you're facing, right side of the screen if you're just looking directly at it, this is a male pelvis. Notice that the male pelvis has a small round pelvic bowl here. It's, you know, like grapefruit size, roughly, okay? And notice that this angle right here is pretty narrow. And if I draw in here, it's actually going to be roughly 45 degrees, okay? But it's pretty steep or pretty narrow, whatever you want to say, okay? Roughly 45 degrees. So the distance between here and here between the ischial tuberosities is narrow. There is a small angle for the pubis, small pubic angle, and you have more of a rounder pelvic bowl here. In contrast, this is a female pelvis. Notice that the pelvic bowl is more oval shaped. See? Oval shaped, a little bit wider, not necessarily narrower, but definitely wider. And then the angle here, for the pubic angle, is much wider. It's mostly 90 degrees or more, okay? And the distance between the ischial tuberosities from here to here is much greater. Because of that, the femurs for a female are going to come down at an angle like this, versus on a male, where the femurs are much straighter. Okay, so quite a few differences between a male and a female pelvis. Again, all of the anatomical models that are in the classroom, for the most part, are male. This skeleton behind me is male. This is actually a 6-foot male, I believe, as most of them are between 5'5" and 6 foot. But anyway, that's irrelevant. I wanted to show you some differences between the male and female pelvises. And of course, the female pelvis is designed to be able to pass a baby through it. It would be very, very difficult to get a baby through this pelvis. In fact, so difficult that it would have to be surgically removed. But that's part of the reason that female pelvises are structured the way that they are. I know that some of you have children, so you've already experienced the separation of the pubic symphysis during childbirth, so that is not a new thing to you. Those of you that haven't, if you are male, you never will, and if you're female, maybe someday. All right, so we are going to stop this video here, and then we're going to go on to specific landmarks of a coxal bone. See you soon.